Hey, what's up, everyone? This is I'm a PC and I'm black, and this is gonna be my first vlog thingy, I think, yeah. So, forgive me if I fuck this up. I probably just cut that out. So, let's get into this before I F anything else up. Basically, what I want to talk about today is patience. Patience is so fucking huge. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, if you don't got patience, you don't have anything in this life. And I don't mean that in a sense that you don't have anything material, like you don't have a hat or something. Like, I mean it like you're not gonna get what you want. And I can guarantee you that if you're not patient when it comes to the things that you want, you're not gonna get them. Because patience, it's an exercise in part. And the reason patience is such a big thing is because for most people, honestly, I'd say the majority of people on this planet, it's very hard to accomplish on a day to day basis at least. We may be patient for some things, but not patient for others. Like, for example, if you're just waiting on your check and you're only like a few minutes away, you don't feel the need to be patient because it's only a few minutes away. But the problem is, you should still be patient because anything can happen at that point. And if for some reason you don't get your paycheck at that point, out of nowhere, you're going to get this anxiety. Why? Because you weren't accepting the fact that it's not going to happen. You were just accepting the fact that it's about to happen, it's about to happen, it's about to happen. So patience was the last thing on your mind. Whereas if you're about to walk down the stairs, you're not impatient to just walk down the stairs because you're visually seeing your goal come towards you. Patience is the opposite. Patience is when you can't see your goal, when you can't see the things that you want to do come into play, and you don't see progress. For example, you've been working on something for ridiculously long, and out of nowhere, you just get this feeling like, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And instead of telling yourself, like, something corny like Rome wasn't built in a day, you just go on and tell yourself it's never going to happen, or even worse, you try to make it happen when you can't. The one problem with time that I think all humans agree is a major issue that if we could fix, we would, is that it doesn't budge for any of us. We can't do anything to make time move faster physically. Not, I don't know if you could say physically, but we can't do anything to make time move faster, and we can't do anything to make our goals come closer to us other than work towards them. We got to bring ourselves to them. And like I said, with patience, you can't see that happening. So patience is essentially you telling yourself to be okay with not having what you don't have right now. I know it's very general and it's not easy to just comprehend that at first for some people, but bear with me for a second. Imagine you have a huge set of goals in front of you and you're waiting for, let's say, just 1 hour because you know at the end of that hour, one of those goals is going to be there or something's going to have been completed. Anybody knows this. If you sit there and look at the clock and you're watching the time, it's going to go by slower. Why? Because you're thinking, because you know what time it is, all of a sudden it's closer and you keep checking. Why? Because you're being impatient. And patience is not, and this is where people get it wrong a lot, and I think it's mainly from the phrase, the watched pot doesn't boil, and that's bullshit. I mean, I get what people, like, I get whoever said that, whoever started saying that, I get what they meant by it. Like, not everything you do, you can sit there and just keep an eye on. And I think it was more meant for relationships and interactions with people. You can't sit on someone and just watch over them and expect something to happen. For example, I don't know if that's the exact meaning of it, but I know for a fact it's not for patience. Because if it were for patience, it would tell you to sit there and not just to watch the pot boil, to force yourself to be okay with it, but to accept it. To just understand that nothing you're about to do or could think of doing is going to make that pot boil except for giving it its time. You can sit there and watch the pot boil, or you can go and do something else. It's going to take the same amount of time. It may seem like it's a short amount of time to you, but it's the same amount of time regardless of the things we keep ourselves occupied with. And the problem that people get is they take this concept of just leaving the pot to boil and going and doing it something else, instead of accepting that even if you go do something else, the pot's still going to boil 5 minutes from now, for example. And in cases like this, where you're waiting for the pot to boil, do whatever you need to do to feel patient, so long as what you're doing, you aren't doing just for the sake of making it feel like the pot's boiling faster. That's not patience, that's distraction. And distraction is the main thing that people get from that quote, that if you want something to happen, you got to stop thinking about it. No. In fact, it'd be better to think about it and understand and come to a conclusion in yourself that I don't care. It's going to come when it's going to come. There's nothing that we can do to make it go faster and to force that water to boil just because we want it to. No amount of desire, no amount of want, or even any amount of distraction is going to make your life or your future appear in front of you, or even appear as if it appeared in front of you. And there are 3 things that really need to be accomplished if you're on the journey towards gaining patience. And the first one is understanding. And I'm going to sound like a broken record real quick, but understanding that you can't do anything to change the speed of time or to change how fast you get to your goals, or how fast they get to you, or make them come to you at all. And then beyond that, you have the acceptance of that understanding, like, okay, like, I get that. I'm okay with that. All right, there's nothing I can do about it, so fighting it is just going to make it worse. And everybody knows that. If for example, if you're at work and you're constantly looking at the clock, fighting the thought, or even if you're not even looking at the clock, but you're thinking about fighting the thought or just fighting it all, it takes 1, energy out of you, and 2, it's very disappointing when you start thinking, okay, yeah, I think now has been enough time that's gone by, I'm going to check the clock. And it's not anywhere near what you thought it would be. Why? Because you just don't want to accept that it's going to happen either way. Because if you did, you would have looked at that clock and been like, oh, it's that time? You wouldn't have had something in your head prepared to believe that it's a certain time, for example. That's not to say for every single situation, but for most that is the case. Once you've achieved this acceptance, the next move beyond that is contentment with those things that you understand and have accepted, to come to a point where you're satisfied just being in time. Just being in a position where you can witness things as they unfold in front of you, and they don't just flash right in front of your face and then they're gone right after that as a memory. Most people will say, like, yeah, like, that's what things really feel like, but they don't, because you can see them coming. You don't necessarily see them coming as in, like, for example, if a car comes around the corner, you can see it turning the corner. It's not like that, but in a sense that as you get closer to your goals, you'll feel it. You'll know mentally and you'll feel emotionally closer to your goals, and you won't feel that dissatisfaction, just like I said earlier, and you're like, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You see that coming. When you look at time, you can see 1 by 1 that the minutes are going by, and if something's happening at 12:30, if you watch the time, theoretically, you can see your goal coming towards you. The only difference is that you need to be okay with the time that it's going to take. Get what I mean? And to end off, if there's anything that you take away from this video, if you still don't feel like you can achieve some sort of patience based off of what I said, then think about it this way, and maybe this will plant a seed. There's nothing that we can do to make time come closer, or our future, or our goals, anything come to us faster. But there's also nothing that any of us can do to make it happen slower. Have a good night.